You can know everything in Credo. That's the ultimate goal, is to know everything. The problem is that one of the things that you must know in Credo is, as always, that you know nothing.
Nobody knows the answers. That's the first thing you learn.
You know, some people seem to.
Because you don't know anything. I mean, until you know that you can't do anything.
Once you know that you know nothing, you're lying to yourself if you know everything. But you can't know everything unless you know that you know nothing.
I mean, until you know that everything that you do isn't worth anything, I mean, unless there's someone else that knows everything.
That's the way to win, really. That's the secret to Credo. It's not about red or blue or yellow or green. And it's not about brown or purple either, even though those colors aren't featured in Credo.
Well, the game's got to be played with precision, you know, that's really the trick. The original game was extremely precise. That's why this variation, it's got to be extremely precise.
A quarter of an inch, that's all it takes. This way, that way, it's a totally different game. I mean, you place your block down smoothly, but precisely. This is not a parlor game. You're not playing it because your TV broke.
Years ago, the Jewish people mourned the death of Rabbi Moses Maimonides, the illustrious Rambam. It was Maimonides who cut the precious diamond known as the 13 roots of the Jewish creed. During this octocentennial year, a group of enterprising university students turned to a mysterious etching from the Cairo Geniza to create a mind-bending challenge of faith for the 21st century. The name of the game, CREDO 13.
Welcome to CREDO 13. I'm Michael Kegel. The 10th root belief of the Maimonidean Creed is that God knows everything. Everything.
Number 10.
God knows.
God knows. Knows all the actions of people.
What human beings do.
The actions of all men.
And all their thoughts.
God knows the thoughts of man. Perfect God knows everything. Must be he knows the thoughts of man.
That which we think, and that which we speak, and that which we do.
God knows everything. And I think it just has to, it goes along with the notion of the all-seeing, all-knowing, omniscient, omnipotent, all the omnis.
God knows what people do.
And somehow, it will matter to God what human beings do.
It is a fundamental to believe that he cares, that it makes a difference to him.
This principle is very simple. For revelation to have significance, God has to have knowledge of human events.
It's a personal God.
God is concerned with God's creation.
Your pain, your thoughts, your striving, your cravings, your aspirations are all important to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Your spiritual cravings, those things are very important to Hashem.
He's a personal God who sees each individual. He relates to each individual.
Every single thing that one does, it counts in the eyes of HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
It's a personal God.
This really is the foundation of principle number 11. The good news and the bad news. Which is the idea of reward and punishment. Here's the good news. The good news is that God knows all the actions and the thoughts. And the bad news is that God knows all the actions and the thoughts. The 10th principle is the principle that God knows. And the 11th principle is the principle that he cares.
Now, is that care a responsive care? Is it somehow or other God responds to our situation, which, if it's freely chosen, can't be totally predicted? Or is that care built into the whole system?
Reward and punishment, which is the next principle, is not built into the system. People like Ralbag and others, seems it's built into the system. If you do good, you're rewarded. But for Maimonides, there might be some aspects of it that are built into the system, and if you're reading the guide, that might be what it is. But here, God makes a choice.
You could have a principle of divine reward and punishment without divine knowledge.
You could see it as a computer.
You have a computer. In the same way, you have a rationalistic concept of prophecy, where
If a prophet has studied enough philosophy, he automatically gains certain kinds of intellectual insight. You could likewise claim that a person acts in a certain way, God treats him in a certain way without God being personally involved. The Rambam, however, emphasized that there is divine knowledge.
He sees, he relates. He's personal, he's personally involved.
Knowledge implies involvement. Now, does a computer have knowledge in that sense? I doubt it. The famous Chinese translation room argument of John Searle. You had a machine that would translate perfectly from Chinese into English, English into Chinese, and get a perfectly calibrated set of dictionaries. So that nothing would go wrong, no misunderstandings, no metaphors that would be misinterpreted. Everything would go perfectly. The question could still be raised. Does that translator really understand the sentences he's translating from one language to the other? And it's not at all clear.
You could have a God who sees all, but who's not, we think of personal in the sense of a God you can relate to. I use the word personal in the sense that as opposed to the Aristotelian prime mover who doesn't have any relationship to the world, who doesn't see the world.
I personally am much more comfortable with that heavily engaged God than I am with the distant God of the philosophers.
If the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not the God of the philosophers, were to play chess, he'd probably give a name to each one of the pawns. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Yehuda. And if you played CREDO, in our CREDO drama number 10, the players start off with a fast-paced, high-level game called Know Your Pieces. The object of the game is to keep track of each block, not just by shape and color, but by its unique identifying markings, so that the round can be repeated again, move for move. And of course, speed is of the essence.
Just add what? Just add water.
Just water. That's it.
That's what the instructions say.
Water?
Yeah, and the rice, of course.
Water and
rice.
Not bad. Not bad.
And it's called a...
And you just add
water,
rice.
right? And
rice.
Because
and
our
rice.
kitchen, yes, our kitchen is quite
bare.
uninformed. It needed some.
It needed
some accessories.
Yes,
something to help. What's it called?
It's called. Because I've never heard.
Yes,
What's it called?
It's called the Smart Pot.
The Smart Pot.
Yes, because
you just add.
Right, and then
it knows how you.
Yes, how you like your rice.
How you like your rice.
Yeah.
It knows how you.
Yes, it's very
smart.
Yes.
You just add, and then
it does the rest.
CREDO.
The technological breakthrough behind the Smart Pot involved freeing the brain up from its need to verbalize its thoughts, concerning rice in this case. The engineering is of course very complex, but the basic principles can be explained by a simple analogy. Say you have a fellow in a car named Michael.
Michael's driving from Hamilton to New York. I'm thinking about, I heard my friend was sick. I was terrible about that. Hashem knows your thoughts. Wow, beautiful thought. Michael had a beautiful thought. Nobody else knows about it. You said something wrong to a person. You felt very bad about it. But you didn't say it to the person. The person will never know. Wow, isn't that great? Great news. A man is not an observant Jew, but he wishes, I wish I could be observant. I wish I could try it. I wish I could become better. I wish I could do things differently. I'm stuck in a situation with my marriage, or a wife stuck with her husband who's not. And their thoughts. Every thought counts.
Since thoughts are obviously a place where one can engage in virtue or engage in sin, thoughts themselves can be virtuous or sinful. Part of God's judgment of us is based upon the fact that He knows our thoughts.
And the bad news is that the bad thoughts count also. I do mitzvahs with the wrong reasons. Hashem knows machshavasim. You think you're doing, I know you're real, I know your ulterior motives. So it's scary in a sense, right? It's scary.
Kind of scary. I hope I have some good thoughts.
The Torah that you think nobody even knows about, right? Nobody even knows about. Your prayers, you daven for something that you ask for. It's beautiful. Look what he's davening for. Look what he's davening for. Or, look what he's not davening for. Right? So that's the good news and the bad news in the one. And I find it very comforting, actually, for myself. But it's not just, I'm not making it comforting, I'm basing it on the Musar Sfarim that talk about this particular Imam, and that it's really a very comforting thought to know that Kadosh Baruch Hu knows my thoughts, and therefore we have to try to make our thoughts, improve them, elevate them to something that's really meaningful.
A really meaningless move with a red piece by Joe is anticipated by Jackie, so that Jackie is able to block it with her own red piece. Perhaps if Joe had given it more thought, Jackie would not have been able to read her mind. Or better yet, it wouldn't have mattered if she did read her mind. After all, the jealousy with which a thought is kept secret is generally a measure of the grubbiness of the thought.
It fits very
And
well.
was it?
Add something.
Yes, we were missing.
because it
fits right in.
And it was expensive? Oh no.
No?
Not expensive.
And you programmed
No
the-
programming.
No programming.
How's
no
that
programming.
possible?
It's very complicated. It sounds very.
It's very complicated.
It cooks just the same
for each person.
It cooks different for each person. Yeah, depending on your taste.
On your
taste. It seems
impossible. It doesn't
And
seem
you just
bad.
how does it know? That's the smart pot.
How does a 12th century creed become a challenge of faith for the 21st century? This is Credo 13. The 10th principle of Maimonides' creed: God is omniscient.
God possesses omniscience. He has omniscience. He knows everything. He sees everything. Now, is that the same thing as providence, which taken literally means that he looks out for everything?
I mean, providence, gosh, I mean, Maimonides has a fairly limited notion of divine providence. And he sees it as something that's more intense for the virtuous man and less intense for the non-virtuous man, which always means the philosopher in his understanding.
When it comes to animals, for example, there's a general providence. For example, guaranteeing that the animal species, the dog species, will never be wiped out. But what happens to your individual dog is chance.
Yeah, sort of an elitist philosophical notion of divine providence in Maimonides that, well, unless we're elitist ourselves, I suppose we're not comfortable with.
So if your dog is walking down the street and is hit by a car, it's not because God had anything to do with it. It's just the way of the world. The Hasidim were very opposed to this, Kabbalah as a whole. And they went back to the tradition already found in the Talmud that everything that happens is due to providence.
And of course the Baal Shem and those who believe in extreme divine providence believe that every leaf that falls from a tree, every twist it gives in the wind is based upon divine providence. So I think there's a lot of disagreement with Maimonides' understanding of divine providence, certainly.
But providence is separate from divine knowledge. What Maimonides is saying here is that God knows the world. He's not an absentee God. He's not some deist conception of a God. Certainly not the Aristotelian prime mover.
I mean, you could think of two ways that God could be related to creation. One, God kind of creates it and turns it loose. Kind of the notion of the deists, the idea that God created the divine watchmaker, this sort of thing. Or that God, and I think modern philosophical, especially language used by people like Levinas, is that God assumes responsibility for God's creation, which means he cares about it.
Philosophers would deny divine knowledge, in part would do so on the grounds that human beings aren't worth caring about.
You had many philosophers. You had Jewish philosophers as well who did not believe that God knows particulars, that is, God does not know me as I am, as I'm sitting here.
Why should God know X if it's not really important? Mathematics is important. God knows mathematics, but you and me, we don't create it.
Because whatever I do is changing. He only knows universals. You could say maybe he even knows the concept of Mark Shapiro, but whether Mark Shapiro decides to drink orange juice or apple juice, that's something beyond him. Maimonides disagrees.
God cares. It makes a difference to him. And he responds to that which we do.
Now you can present that in naturalistic terms and claim it. Human beings are so important that they really deserve to be... a human being is as great as a mathematical principle. That every human being really is a species unto himself.
As opposed to just a being who is... the problem was, how could God see each individual? You're doing things, you're making choices. That's new knowledge. which God is attaining, it's change. If you have free will, it's changes in God.
You know, it's an interesting thing about defining, God. God's perfect, right? So what does that mean? Okay, God's perfect. And because He's perfect, He can't know what man is doing. Because if it was known man is doing, then there would be change in God, and God can't change. Therefore, God can't know that which is transient. Knowledge. But does not take away from His power.
So that was always a philosophical problem. How could God know particulars? For Maimonides, he's asserting that God knows particulars.
This benevolent, all-loving, all-knowing God is concerned with everything, every human being, and the other side of Pluto, and the dandelion on my front lawn, and everything there is.
There's no principle that says it. I mean, that's an explicit verse that God is, benevolent and merciful. But this principle shows you that God is able to be benevolent. Because what does benevolent mean if you don't have any personal knowledge of individuals?
So again, the fact that God knows everything about every individual is not the same thing as providence. It anticipates providence in that it means that God is involved with everything. An analogy. You go to your favorite restaurant. The kitchen may or may not be properly stocked to prepare your favorite dish. Either way, you don't need a menu. Why? Because your favorite waiter will tell you what to eat.
You go to a fancy restaurant, right? And you order the steak. Okay. Or let's say
The waiter asks you.
Yeah, and you say
Well done.
or medium rare.
And they do what they can.
All I'm saying
I think it
is,
shows weakness.
at a really nice restaurant,
You mean-
yeah, shouldn't they know?
They should know. They should know.
Know
how
what the
you
perfect
like
steak
it.
is.
Well done.
Not quite.
Everyone's different.
Perfection is perfection.
Perfection is very personal.
Like rice.
The opening fast grab round of Know Your Pieces has given way to a gentle endgame of Love Me Tender. Here, each player keeps a close eye on another player's faith structure, tilling and tending the other's garden.
I think we have to get rid of the smart pot.
Why? I was just learning to trust it.
The inventors are being sued. For what?
A woman was held at gunpoint and refused to give up her smart pot. The inventors aren't to blame. The woman claimed the smart pot was fragile and needed nurturing. That's crazy.
People are falling in love with the smart pot.
I fell in love with a racehorse once.
My first love was a maraschino cherry.
I fell in love with a pot. There are warnings on the radio.
They think it's dangerous.
Seems endemic. There's one thing I've learned. It doesn't seem right.
Never blame the pot.
After all, when someone knows you that well, even if it is just an appliance, how can you refrain from some affection?
Human beings innately, instinctively call out to God to care for them.
Imagine if you had a person who did not react at all, not to kindnesses and not to insults. In a sense, you could do whatever you wanted to him. There's no response, there's no reaction. He doesn't care. We have to understand that it makes a difference to God how we live and what we do. God cares.
I think that we are God seekers by nature. And that in our heart of hearts we believe that the reason we do that seeking is because God cares for us, wants to hear from us.
It's interesting the verse that is brought down.
He saw the wickedness of man was great on earth.
One of the verses my Rambam brings down to secure this point, is the verse about Sodom. But Sodom.
He hears the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah, and therefore he destroys the city. That's a personal God, as opposed to the Aristotelian God. The world just continues, and there's no one to hear the cry because the prime mover is not concerned with the cry. He set the world in motion. The world has eternally been in motion, dependent on the prime mover, and that Olam come in and go no hey. The world just continues.
It's not just that God, heard what was happening in stone. He had knowledge of what was happening in stone. It's the fact that he had a reaction to the knowledge of what was happening in stone. This is not good.
He hears the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah. He has not forsaken the earth, and therefore he takes an action. The fact that God hears the cry of Sodom and Gomorrah shows that he has knowledge.
It's not something that God just knows what man does, but I have knowledge, but doesn't have any effect on me. It's the fact that God has knowledge and will respond to that knowledge.
Knowledge does not necessarily indicate love, but it does indicate involvement.
He quotes a verse, "The Lord hath not forsaken the earth."
He quotes a pasuk about that God has not abandoned the earth, which I think means to use a term that one modern philosopher used. I won't even mention his name because he was such a horrendous human being, but called Zorga, called concern. Some other God is concerned with his creation.
So to a certain degree, knowing is already a step towards a concern.
I think that the notion of a human being created in the image of God means that what we say is not only are human beings concerned with God, because even those militant atheists is concerned with God, it's just negatively, but that somehow or other we believe that God is concerned with us. He cares about us.
Involvement is already one step towards caring.
If you really believe that God cares about you, you might have your problems with God. We all do. But you're never going to totally slam the door.
Keep building the faith with Credo 13. Join us next week for the next root belief of the Maimonidean Creed. There is an ultimate reward and punishment. Stay tuned for the Men in Black Hats on Messages up next.
Well, by the end, I had a love for the box. I mean, it wasn't sexual. Well, not sexual per se. It was, well, it was mutual, not sexual.
The one thing that lets me sleep at night is that I know that Credo knows me. You can't know Credo.
It was kind of mutual without being sexual, if that's possible.
Credo knows things about you that you will never know about yourself. Credo knows why you made the mistakes you made. Credo knows where you're going for supper in 3 weeks.